Well, could I? I don't know where the picture is, but there we go. Yeah. This doesn't give you, I don't know what happened again. I didn't get to hit the go live button. It just did it for me. Anyway, g'day. Adrian Mahari here. On a subject that just, I understand in people's experience, is a very difficult one and isn't going anywhere in a hurry for anybody, unfortunately. So, surviving the BPD relationship breakup, ruminating and obsessing about that person with BPD. Why are you stuck? I can really help you with that. And I got some ideas about how I'm going to try to help more. Because I just want to say on the outset, at the outset here, on the outset, in the outset, whatever the case may be, I'm going to start doing a lot more on websites. I'm going to get some more products up. I don't know. This isn't even showing live on my channel. This is crazy. Yeah, so I'm going to get some more things up that can really help people to, yeah, do, and if you want to work with me, if I resonate with you, I can really help you with this. So this is something that people go through. And some people go through it for, I don't know how long. Some people are going through it for months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. The ruminating, the obsessing. It has all to do with the cognitive dissonance. It has all to do with the, all the other moving pieces of like no closure. What happened? It's on again. It's off again. Is it off? Is it over? Did it end? I don't know if it ended. I'm not ready for it to end. I still have hope. I talk to clients, get comments on the channel as well, people that it's really over, but like they still have this false hope. And the false hope seems to be a lot about, even after somebody went on to the next person, which no, that's not really definitive a lot of the time with people with BPD in a sense. I don't even know if this thing is working because I seriously can't find it. Okay, hang on a second. Anyway, I gotta keep going or I'll just have to do some edit, but it doesn't look like it's working to me. So, weird. So what was I gonna say? Well, I'm also trying to figure something else out at the same time. I don't think I can do both things at once, so just give me a second here. So well, let me see. I'll just say people are really, really stuck. And codependency is really what's at the heart of people not being able to free themselves from this stuckness or this really stuck and painful place. And the sad thing about that is it's a collection of narratives, it's experience, it's the multi-factored, multi-layered reality of the whole situation. And people are not really, oh, it does say I'm live on my channel, but like, I don't know. Um, oh, it does say I'm live on my channel, but like, I don't know. Okay, there you go. So anyway, I wonder, this is just a rhetorical question at this point, obviously, but I wonder what people are thinking about in their lives, right? About why they're stuck. And the number, this seems to be changing. Things are always morphing with people having these experiences, right? Seems to be more and more people are having more and more difficulty, not only with the ruminating and the obsessing and the being stuck in the false hope, but also with the no contact, with doing, taking maybe step one in some people's cases, or for many people, taking a step at all, or maybe you've taken lots of steps, but still can't get out of this agony, and codependency is at the center of that. And I think there's a lot of other moving pieces as well. And I know when I work with clients, I can only understand those moving pieces with each individual person for what they're actually going through. So to speak to this in a sort of global way for everybody, because it's not the same for everybody. It's not going to be the same reasons or the absolute same difficulty either. But I guess the question really that I would ask people to ask themselves, it's very painful, but what is it that you need to do? So, are you in this place where you're just thinking about them, wondering about them? Are you hoovering, stealth, reverse hoovering to social media? Have you stayed in contact? Are you still working toward the closure? What a lot of people don't realize in these situations is that there's still a risk of being hoovered or you hoovering them and it starting all over again. And that's what people think they want. But wow, that's going to be a cycle that goes around, and just like you're going to end up in an even more painful place than you might be in right now, or a more painful place than you've been in for a long time. So the thing about this is, I wonder, I have lots of ideas, but I can only ask in a general way. For people to ask themselves, what do you think has you so suspended, so stuck in this utter false hope that people are losing themselves to? You lose yourself. Well, people with codependency lose themselves somewhat in childhood. Then you lose more of yourself in these relationships, and there is that underpinning reality of codependency that begins in childhood, that definitely is the multi-layered what's happening for you now. And people feel, well, I can't say what people feel. I know what a lot of clients have told me they feel, but there just seems to be this suspended place of, like, maybe it's not exactly disbelief, but it's like people just keep thinking and ruminating, and the pain, and maybe it's lack of understanding, but more often than not it's this unconscious, it's the reality of the unconscious that people aren't in touch with consciously in themselves, about why this person, this ex, or on and off again, or I don't know what's going on with them, borderline, why are they so on your mind? Why can't you stop this? Why are you going in these circles? Well, it's not always, often, it's not as much about that person as so many people think it is, because it's multi-layered and it goes to something still largely in people's unconscious minds, right? It needs to be brought to the subconscious. What happened in childhood? What are you so seeking after? Codependency is what's the word I'm looking for? It is an externalization of a childhood wound as well. To one, and not everybody with codependency has the same degree or extent of childhood woundedness, but it is this externalizing out of that. And also, people with codependency, more often than not, but some way or other in childhood, have gotten into this protective space of a fawn codependency response often, which gets into people pleasing, which is being done for survival reasons in childhood, to try to get a parent's attention, to try to get your needs met by a parent. And this is something that a lot of people in adulthood think, well, my childhood was okay, people with codependency, because there's a way of repressing things that weren't maybe necessarily the worst things in the world, but they were very impacting to many people with codependency, more than not, when they were young children, whatever age. And so it's important to realize that this repetition compulsion in codependency is not just about that person, that borderline, that ex, that on again, off again, that, person that maybe it's been a while, they've been with somebody else, but there's still this contact going on, whatever it means, whatever, why ever, and you still have the hope they're going to come back. But it's not really them that you want back. You might want them back for some reasons now, but it's not really them psychologically deep within you that you want back. It's something, unmet needs and codependency, that are still driving a lot of people with codependency to believe that it's all about that other person, that it's about getting that, hit again, for the aspect of the neurobiological and the chemical soup of the love addiction. And but all of this starts in childhood with unmet needs. Obviously not the adult physical reality of it all, but it you know, my thing here right now is I've watched, sort of, I don't get that many views anyways, but as I've watched the views on certain videos, and what I've sort of concluded is that on this channel anyways, and probably channels that delve into the same things or similar things as mine, or even in the narcissistic area videos, it just seems like so many people are so boxed in with their own, between the codependency, not understanding what's in the unconscious mind, and what you're doing right now that seems all about that cluster B, that borderline narcissist, whatever. So many people are so unaware, or you might be intellectually aware, but it's not going to help you emotionally, not going to help create the change, not going to help you to get into a process of healing recovery where you're focusing on you, because that's a really hard refocus, reshift to make, and yet it's at the core of everything in terms of recovery. And so what I've seen on this channel is I know the kind of videos. If I do a certain kind of video and a certain kind of narrative, it's going to get a lot more views. So a lot of people are looking for that. I get that. But here's my dilemma. I don't want to keep feeding into that necessarily. Not saying I won't still once in a while, but there's a certain kind of video that I can do that I know 1,000, get 1,000, 1,500, maybe even 2,000 views in a month, which, that's a lot for this little channel. But what I care about more than that is how to really help people break out of this rumination, break out of this agony, break out of this obsessing and thinking about the other person at always the expense of yourself. Like, constantly, I think on this channel in comments, I'm writing back to people, what about you? you know and so, but I know I can't push anybody that watches my videos to be further ahead, and I don't mean this in any condescending way, right? I can't help people to get further ahead than they're ready to be yet, right? So everybody's in their own place and process with this for their own reasons, but it is something that many people with codependency are supporting. You're in a world of hurt, okay? And something happened in your childhood. Okay, and the other thing is you are increasing, I'm sure not on purpose, right? But you're increasing your suffering by the continued self-abandoning of yourself and the continued focus on the borderline, the narcissist, the whomever, anything and everything but you. And that's an externalization out in codependency that you learned in childhood, because what's the biggest reason for staying stuck? Well, people are afraid of their own pain. People are afraid of being alone. People don't know how to let go because of things that happen in childhood and families of origin. This is where I can really help people in sessions more than I can in anything I say in a video. But the other thing I'm aware of is that where people are, and I'm not angry or anything, I'm just saying, I'm here to keep it real, and this is going to be a little blunt. Where people are that still want to see the other type of videos that I do, which I've done a plethora of, and like I said, it's getting hard for me to do them anymore. I don't think I said that, but truthfully it is. It's narratives, but there are people new to this every day that need to still hear some of that. But I think I want to try to change it up. No, not on the channel, because I realize that doesn't necessarily work. And whatever video that you find most helpful right now is your business and is important to you and is where you're at. And I want to be respectful of all those things. So that's why I'm going to start doing more on my websites. I'm rethinking the membership right now in terms of how I can make this work, whether people really want that or not. But on my websites, there's going to be some blogs, there's going to be some free stuff, and there's going to be a whole lot more quote products unquote coming. But they're going to be For those of you that are ready to stop listening to the videos that I've been making notorious, like, you having frantic efforts to get your ex back, that kind of the other side, the other perspective that lots of people still need, and that's where people are. People are coming new to this every day. But for people who really want to step out of that narrative and really truly get into helping yourself to move to the next step, none of this is easy. It's super painful. So that's where I have a plethora of stuff that I've been writing, that I've been doing, videos, things I've been recording that are just sitting on a hard drive, waiting to be organized, and I'm going to get it done. And it's going to be at selfintegration.net, ajmahari.co. There's going to be ebooks at ajmahari.com. There may be some overlap of these things, but they're not going to all be on just codependency is going to be a big focus, healing from these relationships, and it's not just going to be on BPD, 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 BPD. Because if you're not somebody with BPD, it's time for you to start focusing on you and what is going on for you and what has happened to you. Not only in the relationship with the borderline or the narcissist, but what happened in your childhood, the family of origin, the self differentiation, the inner child healing? Without this, people are going to stay stuck. And it is so painful. But tragically, so many people with whatever the woundedness is in childhood to various degrees, very individual, are locked into this obsessive ruminating because it's not it's not just one thing. It's not just that ex or that person or that whatever the situation is or the relationship type with that borderline or that narcissist. It's way deeper than that. So that's what I'm going to offer on my websites, and I'll continue to do probably some similar videos here. But yeah, I try to take a departure, and I'm at the point now where uh I want to still give people wherever you're at, whatever video of mine would resonate with you more. Still want to try to make that available for people, but in a way, it's like the narratives and the possibilities for healing that are there, and the number of people that aren't availing themselves of it, which is your choice, absolutely. But I don't know really. It's like, because it's not about me. It's just what I see. It's just what I observe. You know, why people are stuck. Not that I know why every person is stuck and what you can really do about that. But a lot of people really, truly aren't ready to do anything about it yet. And that's fair enough because it's about wherever you're at. So I'm just going to try to I'm still going to do some videos that are departure for what it seems like most people really want to hear from me, or not really see, but hear from me. And I'm fine with that. So if two people watch a video, if it helps those two people, then great. Because you know what? I feel like I am a lot of what I do and a lot of what my goals and missions are about is about being a change agent to help people, and I don't know if I'm doing that on this channel anymore with those other kind of videos, which again I will make more of because people are coming new to this every day, and some people still really need those videos. But and no offense to anybody, but the comments, I love your comments. Please keep commenting. I'm not judging. I'm just trying to point out something here that I hope will be educational for somebody. Might resonate for some few people. I don't know. I can never know. But the thing is, when I see comment after comment of people saying, but they're not ready to go no contact, but they can't go no contact, but I can't, but I can't, but I can't. Okay, that's where people are. I'm not judging that. Clients come to me in the same place. It's a process. I understand that. People in a world of hurt. And I guess what my mission and my goal is wanting to help people out of the world of hurt. But you can't help somebody out of a world of hurt that isn't ready to leave the world of hurt yet, exactly. So then the challenge becomes, the videos. I don't use clickbait, unlike other people online who do on YouTube. But I don't want to say salacious, but the videos that speak more to people who are still in that, I don't even know what adjective to use, but all that pain and how important it is to move out of that pain. But like I said, that's each person's choice. Oh, hey there, Thanos. I didn't see you come in. Thank you for that. Oh, thank you so much. Um, and so, yeah, because this isn't going to be a very busy one. Probably A, because I'm like really not usually on at this time. And who knows if it's the message or not, too. Anyway, I keep trying. So, what I want people to clearly know is that this is not judgment of people. People are in their own situations and in their own places. But here's one assertion I do want to make. If you are stuck in this no man's land of, I really want this person back. I don't know what to do. I don't understand. There's been no closure. I don't know what happened to me. And you're all, ruminating and obsessing about them, and you're ignoring and abandoning yourself, which is a pattern that goes back to childhood. Then just know when you're ready, if you're ready. I'm out here to work with you. If you resonate with me, I can definitely help you in sessions. So I'm a little bit lost as to what videos to do, because every time I try to do a bit of a departure, well, they're obviously not well watched. And so that tells me that people are more interested in a certain kind of video that actually, my dilemma with that is it supports your pain, it supports your confusion, unless you're brand new to this, right? Like I said. But when people keep saying, I can't go no contact, I can't, do, you know, okay, that's where people are at. That's what people believe. That's what you're experiencing. But what's going to change, or what's going to help you if you keep believing and saying, quote, I can't, unquote, or I'm not ready to go no contact? So that means really that statement is I'm not ready to let go of this pain. So what does that mean? It means that people with codependency in these sort of no man land, or the relationship kind of did end, but there's still contact, but you're still trying to work it out, all this kind of stuff, you're still holding yourself in a suspended, incredibly painful place that no, you didn't create all by yourself. But then you have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Because it's ignoring. You're ignoring you. It's that you've lost yourself even more, and people with codependency don't really know themselves all that well to begin with. It varies again, right? Not everybody's the same. So I'm trying to be my goal is to be a change agent here, to help people to learn more information, to help people to think about things in different ways. And so it's key thing here too. If you're stuck in this place right now, or if you're new to it, or things just happen, it's really important on, think. Okay, thinking only gets you so far, right? Because it's ruminating and obsessive thinking. Well, that's not good. But on top of that little picture there, it says, don't believe everything that you think. Because so many people are in the thoughts of it all, like this thought soup that goes around and around and around, right? Which is creating more suffering for people on top of what's happened already. And so, what you really need to start thinking about doing, or doing if you feel like you're ready to do it, or doing what, really people need to start taking steps when they don't feel ready. It's not like one day it's going to be, oh, I feel ready now. I can do this now. It doesn't kind of work that way in most cases. So, the key thing is if you're believing what you're thinking, and you're extra thinking it all the time and over again and all day long, like a lot of people are going to create more suffering because you're believing what you're thinking. And what does that mean, even like one step deeper than that? Well, okay, you're believing what you're thinking, and you're ensconced and really invested in what you're thinking constantly, the ruminating, the thinking, etc. So underneath that is, what are you feeling? Because so many people with codependency after these relationships, or not quite yet, but and in the false hope, you are denying or separated from, in denial and or dissociation to some degree, might even be a minor degree, You're thinking, and mostly about them, and you're not really, a lot of people are not aware of what they're feeling. And there might be some feelings there, but then somehow what you might be feeling kind of gets overlooked again, and you kind of go back to what you're feeling is all of it's being pushed. Well, your thoughts are being pushed by what you feel, but you might think that what you think is making you feel so bad because you just need to get them back, or you just need to understand better, or you gotta get that piece of closure, or you need this or that or the other thing, or the cognitive dissonance, or whatever it is, all of those moving pieces. But the reality is that's just feeding in to the same loss of self that gets worse for people with codependency in these relationships and after them. That's what a lot of the healing and recovery journey will be about. But it's also about learning more about yourself. And yes, it is about self integration. And there's various levels of that for people with codependency. But it's why are so many people extending so much, quote, I feel sorry for this borderline, or, quote, I have so much empathy that I can't help myself kind of narrative, when it leaps and bounds out of the boundary of healthy empathy. So this isn't about codependents being empaths. That's the really bad news. People might not like to hear that. You're not an empath if you're codependent. You're not an empath if you think you're an empath. And you're going to overextend yourself to the obliteration of yourself, to this suffering you've been through, but increasing your own suffering by still focusing on them because somehow they're your freaking answer. Well, I'm here to say today, really plainly, really bluntly, getting back with the borderline, figuring out the borderline, understanding the borderline personality, understanding the narcissistic personality, is not your way out. It's not your way out, because all of it is you obfuscating your own relationship to yourself, which goes back to your childhood, wherein that got interrupted to one degree or another, in many of the different ways that this happens for people with codependency. So you really want to be surviving this BPD relationship breakup? Then you got to start to shift. But it would really be helpful and healthy for you to start to shift out of that and back to essentially the lost self. Yeah, and that means you got two choices, essentially. I mean, you got as many choices as you can think of, but really it comes down to two choices. You can stay in the pain and agony you're in right now, and the focus and the ruminating and the obsessive thinking about person with BPD or NPD, the just X, or the who knows what's going on. I want to try again. Yeah, you can do that. Hurt yourself, get hurt all over again, lose more of yourself. That's what happens, okay? In 30 plus years of working with people, I've not had one person come back and say, or email me. Lots of people do follow up to email how they're doing in their life after they work through things and they go ahead in their lives. But nobody's emailed me and say, guess what? I got back with that ex and it worked out and we're great now. Not once, not once. So that's just what I can tell you anecdotally about the work that I've done with clients for 30 plus years. So I'm not saying there's no relationship out there on earth, because if a person with BPD has already been in a lot of therapy and they're at a place, lots of people with BPD are much more aware than most people with BPD. Let's put it that way. Or most of the X's that most of you have with BPD, or the about to be X, or the on and on again, whatever it is. But what clearly needs to be chosen by people in this situation with codependency is you need to choose self over other. And it's that might sound selfish, that might sound horrible, but when you have laid yourself bare and just totally ignored yourself, because somewhere in childhood you learned that, and this overgiving. But don't think that you're an empath, don't think that you're so empathic. You're not. Why? Well, two reasons. You're way extended over healthy empathy, number one, to somebody else who can't meet you where you are. And the other part of it is Are you giving yourself any empathy? Do you have any compassion? Or like, hello, are you paying attention to yourself at all? Because many people aren't. And many people are just all about that other person, all focused on the other person, and not thinking about themselves at all. So, this is, just what I observe and what I see in the narratives, and what trends in videos also indicate. Hey there, Billy the Goat. I can testify you've helped me in ways beyond words can express. Much love, AJ. Well, thank you, Billy the Goat. I'm glad that I've been able to help. Hey there, Joe. Struggling with this right now. Didn't even know the stream was on. Great timing. Well, I'm glad it's good timing. I know, I popped on at a very unusual time. Not that I don't do that a lot, but I'm more to be seen around in the evenings, right? So anyway, I just think like this is a really crucial thing for people, and I realize that. And I don't mean to sound passionate, so I hope it doesn't come across like angry. I'm not angry, but I will admit to I'm always frustrated on this channel. I always am, because I want to be giving as much as I can that's going to help people as much as possible. So, and people in all different kind of places. So I think that that's why I've spent a lot of time here, and I'm not going away, but I got to spend a lot more time on the products because they're not really going to be courses. They're going to be video series or audio series. They're going to have workbooks with them and and various things like that. And they're not going to cost an arm and a leg or anything. And the thing is, they'll be at selfintegration.net, they'll be at ajmahari.co, and maybe something at ajmahari.com. But whenever I get those things up, I will do just short videos about that to let you know, because it's not like advertising. It's just like, in case you want to know, there's this over here. So it's going to look a little bit more, but not quite like my second channel, where I'm talking about things without labels. Why I use labels in some of these video series and in some of the ebooks and the workbooks and things I want to put together for people, which I have so much of almost done. It just, needs organizing. Why? Because it will help you to deal with whatever you're dealing with still in a relationship, or with the ex, or with the, contact, whatever's going on. But I have a lot of different things that are coming that are going to be, how can I put this really? Like things that help you deal with stress, things that help you look at what is the lost self, what is this woundedness, what is inner child healing, workbooks and things to help you to assess where you're at or what's happening for you. So, but most of this would be more considered an adjunct to the session work I do with people than probably an adjunct to the videos, because the videos are broad based in general. They have to be, or as much as they can be, they are. And so, and that might not be as helpful as it needs to be for people. So anyway, that's just what I've been observing. And the narratives that are going on, right? And you have to remember too, if I can just insert something here experientially, I've been on both sides of this. Okay? So I didn't just have BP and heal and recover from that, 30 plus years ago. But like, I was a child, and I'm the adult child of one narcissist. BPD MPD is still here, as far as I know. I don't know. The other one, Dark Triad, died a long time ago. But if we don't do our work, it doesn't matter if it's a parent, okay? But if we don't do our work and they pass away, you're still going to be living with all those injunctions. You're still going to be controlled by them from beyond, which can happen with exes as well, in the sense that if you just don't do the work and get on board with finding yourself and looking at yourself in this journey, then they keep having this quote control. But it's not like they have any control. It's what people give their empowerment away to. And how do people find empowerment when maybe you're just in too much pain, and you don't see a way to feeling empowered? But I've been on both sides of this. So what I wanted to stress was, I had codependency as well. Probably I still have to be very careful with it, but I mean, I'm pretty much recovered from it. But I remember how painful that was. It's extremely painful. I think people think codependency is, well, something, but something light. No, it's very serious, very painful, very difficult. Really need to be in a healing and recovery process, with somebody with an established history. If I'm out here if you resonate with me, but, a professional who knows what they're doing, not just some, ex out there who thinks they're an uber expert on everything because they had the same experiences you did. Well, so did I. I have had two partners that had quiet BPD. I had that one, oh, that was the BPD NPD alcoholic from 2004 to 2006. I don't think I learned more, except from childhood and, all that recovery. I don't think I learned more from anything else but that. So please remember when I'm talking to you about this stuff, I've been where you are. I've been ruminating. I've been obsessively thinking. I've been not wanting the 2004 to 2006 one, especially. I didn't want that. I was in a different place called like super denial. I don't even know how I got there. But long story short, I was trying hard to rescue the unrescuable. I was trying hard to make the unworkable work. I was without, I mean, I had some awareness, but without realizing it, the way I would describe it, as I was just kept throwing myself on the altar of her ego, endless ego supply needs, and the BPD part and stuff. And it was like, you know, I should have just said to this person, not that it would have helped them, but I should have just said, hey, like, can I lay down over this puddle so you can walk across it like a queen? What else can I do for you? Because because for some reason, even though I knew way better then, there I was, being like so many of you have been, experiencing what so many of you are still experiencing. I went through it again, 2004 to 2006. And to this day, because I don't care anymore, but I can't really figure out the why or the wherefore of that. But what was really important was working my way through. I mean, I did end up breaking up with her. I didn't get ghosted by her or anything, but a couple of really painful moments for me, more than moments, and what I had to do for myself because of this person and what I got myself involved in or whatever happened there, because it was a lot of heavy grooming, but I have to take some responsibility, right? So looking all the way back to 2004, 2006 with the BPD alcoholic X, now, well, you know, I don't know how or why it happened. To this day, I don't. But what I remember clearly is the hard choices I would have to make because no matter how much I tried to figure it out in the situation, it wasn't helping me out. And understanding a few things here and there, I was able to sort of twist things back around to not hold her accountable, because of course you can't hold them accountable, but to get clear on, wait a minute, what's happening here for me? How much am I overextended and why? But see, this doesn't always happen because we're, quote, empaths or we're so empathic to this person. No, it happens because of something that's repeating inside of ourselves. It's repeating inside of people with codependency. And that's why it hurts so extra much. And you're not just losing yourself because of the cluster B. Like, I didn't exactly lose myself entirely to the BPD and PD alcoholic. But man, what a struggle. And it was really, really painful. But what I know about my experience with that, I'm just sharing so you know that I know I've walked in your shoes too. That I remember that impossible feeling because after I broke up with her and after, we didn't live in the same place but we tried to be friends. Don't ever try to be friends with the ex cluster B. Um, Cause she would come around to like being in a helpless place again. And oh, can you just help me with this? Can you just and I was like, a sucker for it. Yeah. Cause you know what? I think deep down underneath all this codependency and all this unhealthy empathy and all that we extend, when you get to know yourself as I know myself now, you'll find out you're a wonderful, loving, caring person. But you gotta have some limits and boundaries on it, right? Or it just keeps creaming you. It just keeps hurting you like, you know what, and beyond. And what I learned in that moment, so long story short, just She was spending time that, she was supposed to spend a few days with me because she got homeless or something. And after one night, and she was in the guest room, after one night, I was having a panic attack. Well, what is that but cognitive dissonance, right? It's the intersection of look what I'm doing and why am I doing this? This is not good for me. And it's a base conflict, and that's going to drive anybody into anxiety or a panic attack because it's trying to wake you the heck up. Take care of yourself. You're in all this pain because you're doing something for somebody else and you're forgetting about yourself. Long story short, so she had some bags of stuff, and that was about it at my place for this brief period of time. And went, for the weekend to her sister's cottage, and I'm just supposed to like, yeah, whatever. I didn't care. But so anyway, that's when I had my moment when I was by myself, which was fine. And long story short, I just realized like, what am I doing here? I already got out of the relationship. This is enough. Now, so, and I just found out more lies the night before that she had told more lies. I just got through all of those. So the bottom line was I called her up, got the answering machine, of course, or voicemail, and said, hey, you got to come and get your stuff. I'm putting it out in the hall. I'm done. This is over. I can't do this anymore. And I bawled while I said that, to be perfectly honest. I wasn't all strong, and, it was painful. And in that codependent way, I was like crying. I don't know. Was it my pain? Was it her pain? When you're in the middle of this stuff, you don't know if it's their pain or your pain. And that's part of the problem, or a little bit of both. But their pain is their pain, and their pain is their responsibility. And you got to get with what's hurting you. And that's your responsibility. So this person would normally ignore me when she had other supply, right? And so, but she called right back and she was like, what, like, come on, you can't do this to me, whine, 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 victim, 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 all that stuff. And I just, it was really hard for me to do, but I just said, look, I already said what I had to say. I took the time to get a couple of numbers and places of women's shelters because she didn't have a place to stay, which I decided that day in my panic attack. That's not my problem. She doesn't have a place to stay. I have a place to stay. There's a reason I have a place to stay. I have my own apartment because I'm being responsible. I don't know what she's up to. I mean, the alcoholic part of BPD, NPD didn't help her either, right? But so she was deteriorating, but like that wasn't my problem. And it was still hard back in 2006 with my codependency back then. It was still hard to go, okay, but I gotta like, it's hers, not mine. I can't anymore. And so she begs me on the phone and everything. I say, no, I give her the women's shelters numbers and I tell her, look, I'll keep an eye on your stuff, but it's going out in the hall now and you better come and get it because I'm done. That's it. And then I still didn't know how to cope with that. I didn't feel ready for that. No, I felt like my anxiety attack and panic attack was saying, you need to do something for yourself here. That's all I knew. So when she shows up and she knocks on the door, and of course I shouldn't have answered it, but I opened it a bit, and at the time, because it's 2004, 2006, right? I was younger and she was older than me, and she was, and she literally was a 57-year-old woman or 58-year-old woman, I don't remember at the time, jumping up into a big woman, jumping up and down like a 3-year-old, going, AJ, AJ, this literally, AJ, AJ, I gotta pee really bad, AJ, AJ, I gotta pee. And I'm like, well, what if she has to pee? I doubt it, but what if, because like, and then in my head somewhere, I just kept saying, it's not my problem, it's not my problem, it's not my bladder. I mean, if she has to go, she has to deal with it. I can't. I just kept telling myself that. Boundary, 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 even though I wasn't strong in it. And the words that came out of my mouth next, this is going to be blunt, okay? I just said, well, then you're just going to have to piss yourself, I guess, because you're not coming in here and I can't help you. And furthermore, I'm not willing to extend myself another quarter of an inch for you. And then it's all, and never mind the drama that came with that. I just simply kept repeating the same sentence. I'm done. This is enough. I can't do this anymore. I refuse. You got to take care of you. Whatever's going to happen to you is up to you. I'm taking care of me. So then I closed the door. She was getting this stuff, had somebody helping her. And then I'm in a world of hurt because I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling bad. Oh yeah, I'm feeling all that stuff that all you people are probably still going through. I understand. And then I turned on the TV, the lobby camera, and she had parked right in front of that camera, because it doesn't show you the whole parking lot. And she sat in her car, and I sat in the chair looking at her sitting in the car, on the TV. And I mean, I was in a world of hurt called, I think I'm the meanest person on earth, but wait a minute, I was all mixed up, but I knew I had to do what I needed to do for me. Or, yeah, I must have known that because I did it, right? But it didn't feel like okay. So, anyway, I'm watching her sit there for 45 minutes. I was probably bawling half of that time. And, but I knew I had to do what I had to do. And the point is, she obviously didn't have to go to the washroom, right? If she could sit there for another 45 minutes. So that was all, manipulation. And I got to, just a way to try to get in my apartment. Or if I would allow her to break that boundary, come in to go to the bathroom. But it would have been all about trying to gaslight me and blame me and change my mind and all that stuff. So I just want you to know, as I say this, as I work with clients, as I'm developing this material that won't cost an arm and a leg, there'll just be a lot of it coming. As I'm going to turn back to websites more, I'm still going to be here, I'm still going to be doing different videos. But I want to encourage people as much as I possibly can to get into the healing and recovery journey, to make the choice that I made in 2006. I wasn't ready to make it. It didn't feel right. I thought I was a horrible, mean person. I went through all those feelings and thoughts and anxieties, but something kept pushing me forward. It was such a conflict, and that's what it is for everybody. It's the conflict of, when are you going to choose yourself over this person who has no right to everything that you're giving them, that's depleting you, that in codependency, yes, it's an externalization out of something. And I'll just tell you, what was my big deal in that quote relationship unquote? What was my big lesson? Well, the silver lining that I took out of it, no thanks to that person, right? We don't give credit to the narcissistic or the borderline, creaming you person. No, but I couldn't learn. I learned one part, okay, while I was still in the relationship, but I still had a little work to do around failed empathy from my past. I'd done so much work on it, but now I'm fine with that. But, hey, we can't say we're 100% perfect. Although I've heard YouTubers online saying, if you want the perfect recovery and the perfect thing and the perfect thing, do it. If you want what I have, do what I do. I'm not here to say that kind of stuff. But what I'm here to say is, I hope something I share about this situation, as I don't have any need to talk about it, will help people. Because the key thing is, I did not know how I got in the well, I know how I got in the relationship. I was groomed, and it's a long story. It wasn't normal. Like, it wasn't just I met her on the street or I met her through somebody else. I met her in her therapy office. Okay, but so yeah, but the point is, anyway, I didn't feel ready. It felt impossible. I had a panic attack. I mean, I broke up with her, but then this last piece of, still not being in this codependent space with this person that was deteriorating. It was the alcohol. It was probably a lot of things, but she was probably getting early, I think, alcohol dementia. She was getting tested. She'd had some physical problem. I didn't know what was a real physical problem with her from a lie. Okay. So that was the other thing that happened over the course of the last year. It was just like the lies were just so incredible. And so the failed empathy part for me, of course, this person had no empathy. Like, wake up, AJ, right? But I thought she did, because I met her as a social worker in a therapy office where I'd gone because I found out I had Asperger's, so it wasn't anything to do with BPD or anything like that. But long story short, so that puts a whole other layer of what that was about in the beginning. That is more her responsibility than mine, but doesn't matter. So the thing is that it didn't feel right. I didn't know how to do it. It felt impossible. I still had codependency. I felt guilty. I felt bad. But the beauty of anxiety and the beauty of having anxiety to a panic attack, and the beauty of all of that just incredible. It's too painful to go through over and over again. Um, that propelled me forward to do what I knew I needed to do, even though I wasn't ready. It didn't feel right, and it felt like I was a meanie and all that stuff. But so what I learned in the relationship and after, I never really figured out the whys or the wherefores, or how could I have fallen into that. I don't mean to sound like I think I'm special, no, but I know a lot better than that. How did that happen to me? I still don't to this day know. And guess what? I don't care anymore. So that question is burning and compelling with where you might be right now. But as I think back to this, and I'm sharing this with you for a reason, I never figured that part out, and it does not matter. I healed, I recovered, I moved forward. I never looked back. I didn't care what happened to her. Like, I can really say on one level, I really had no give. No, I had no more F's to give. You know, that sort of new language. Like, do you have any more F's to give? Do you have any more care to give? No, because you need to rescue one person, and that's yourself. So what I learned in the relationship was something else I worked through on my own, a bigger piece about failed empathy. And that really tipped the scales in the relationship to where she had this power and control, kind of. And then I realized something and I was like, oh, it's this. And then I said it to her and she looked like she was just deflating in front of me. And then after that, like, I broke up with her, and then trying the friendship for almost another year. And then the thing of it was, it was just, I was constantly really rescuing her in that quote friendship part, because she was going from room to room, and the alcohol. Like, I was astounded. One time she said she needed help because something went wrong with the landlord or whatever, as if it wasn't her that created the situation. But I went to help her because and but I mean, yeah, whatever. I like to be a kind person too, but this was anyway. When I went to, she was living in a basement room, and she had her clothes in garbage bags that she wasn't wearing and stuff. But what shocked me, and why would it shock me? Because I already knew she was an alcoholic. But all the lies about trying harder, blah blah blah. So long story short, here, when I went into that space to help her, because she would just fold into this helpless, like, whatever, which at the end of it all, that day in the hall with the stuff out there, I was like, you can melt here, you can go to the washroom on yourself, you can, melt, you could do whatever you want, but I'm not going to change it for you. I'm taking care of me. But so when I walked into that room where I was going to help her move her stuff, she had a car. I didn't, but like, get the stuff in the car, go to the other place, and I was just the person doing the carrying and the lifting. I couldn't believe, I could not believe the alcohol bottles around, and the in Ontario you buy, predominantly, you can go to a grocery store, but it's the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, the LCBO. Sounds all controlling, but you can go get whatever you want. I could not believe the number of bags, let alone bottles, strewn all over there. Just like, so that would be the last time that I gave anything to her. But the silver lining was, that I still had a piece of work to do around failed empathy. And I got it done in the relationship, actually. And that's what created my out, if you will. But I still had the codependency of, yeah, like, she was helpless, basically, and deteriorating. But it's like, why is this my problem? Why is this my responsibility? When this person violated all the ethics of being a social worker, um, yeah, and I won't get into all that because that was all legally pursued and taken care of. And but for a year and a half I stayed in collusion with her. And that's another thing. People don't realize the degree to which, and everybody with codependency, your childhood is going to have been different. It's not always the same. But you will have learned to collude, to cooperate, to please, to deny yourself for a parent on some level, for some reason, for some modicum of time, if not predominantly. And so I colluded with this woman for a year and a half to my detriment. It was just bizarre. And I just wanted to share that because I really want to bring home this message to you that if you're somebody who's still staying in these cycles, whether it's an ex, whether it's, you don't know, it's on off, get you want them back, just know that you're making a choice against yourself. They're not that freaking important. They feel that freaking important because it's hard to stop and look at where you are. And you know what? You're never going to have a moment of readiness to that. So that was the purpose of my sharing that story, that truism, that what really happened 2004, 2006 for me, and how I got out of it, and it took a panic attack for me to wake up and go, "Wait a minute." You know? And so the thing is, it doesn't matter how much we know, because whatever is emotionally left over that we're going to overgive and deny ourselves about, there's no moment that you're going to feel all ready to end that, to change that, to start to, for lack of a better way to put it, rescue the one person you can, and that's you. And Karen said, quote, choose yourself over other, unquote. The funny thing is, when I, quote, chose my ex, I feel like I'm choosing myself. Isn't it ironic? Well, that's where there can be collusion. That's where there can be enmeshment. That's where people, even just with codependency, not, BPD or cluster B, can be so, in a way, projecting identification, not the same way people with BPD do it, but you merge with the person, and then it's like you lose where your boundaries, if you had them before, you lose where do you end and where do they begin, and they don't know where they end or begin. And then you get into this sort of middle space called, this has nothing to do with me, but I don't realize it. But I hear what you're saying, Karen. It's like, but it's sort of like when you say it's ironic, and that that you felt like you were choosing yourself. I wonder, like that's a really interesting way you put that, because I think I can relate to that from that example I just gave, 2004 to 2006. But the thing is, there's something in there. There's a flaw in the ointment there, a perception. And Joe, you said, I used to think as a codependent person, I was just super sacrificing. Well, there's that, but it goes deeper. And you said there's also a level of anger because the ex of BPD. Yes, of course. And unfortunately, and I didn't know till recently, yeah, how angry you are. Well, I'll tell you, 2006, the ending of that, well, and the friendship and the ending of, like, friendship, as if. But the ending of that codependent nightmare, trying to be her friend after, like, I already broke up with her, like, yuck. Um, I was pretty angry, but I have to say, more than being angry at her, I was angry at myself. I was really angry at the ways I let myself down. And I think that for people with codependency, you might not be there yet. You might be angry at the other person. It's both, right? You can be angry at the other person, but for me, I think I already worked through my anger at her when I broke up with her and prior, and what led to that. But then you have to work at the anger that you have for letting yourself down, and that's a deeper process. And Joe, yeah, I like the way you put that. I need to re-enter my own life. Exactly. Hey there, car girl. I love your name, humongous. Why am I feeling guilty for my BPDX who started drinking again, even though I'm in 3 weeks of no contact? Friends of us told me, and it makes me feel like crap even though I don't want to be with her. Well, the funny thing about codependency is there's always something going on in the unconscious that we're not, like, I wasn't aware of back in 2004, like 2006, that I was talking about. Um, that makes it feel so compelling. This person is so compelling. Everything's about them, even if you don't want them back. Yeah, but see, it's something inside of you that goes back to your childhood likely, and that's about you inside that you need to figure out and find out about, because that's what's really going to set you free. But people think it's about them, And oh man, when they're alcoholic too, it's like, yes. And you know, my parents were alcoholic as well as everything else. Cluster B's up the yin yang. And the thing is, I always had boundaries around that. I always told myself I would never be with an alcoholic. And then I end up with this BPD, NPD alcoholic. And it's like, and that was always something that I couldn't believe that. You know, it's like, where did I go? Where did the me who knew I'd never do that go? So I think 3 weeks no contact. Congratulations on that. Well, I think maybe, you know, like maybe a lot of people don't realize that you have a lot of anger towards yourself now because it's painful when we put other people ahead of ourselves. But yet, for some people with codependency, part of that is the denial of one's pain and what you need to know. And then when you stop doing that, well, then that's where people need to face the reality of starting to deal with what hurts inside and why. And yeah, a lot of it will have to do with the ex and the relationship and what happened there. But that's a big piece. But then there's a way bigger piece of something that's been going on inside of you. Maybe you didn't realize, or people might not know yet consciously what is that piece that connects to this cluster B person that makes it all feel so compelling even now, you know, even when you're no contact. Cargill, I can relate to Karen as well about feeling like I'm, quote, choosing myself when I'm not. Yeah, I wonder, that's interesting because I wonder if either of you can say a little bit more about that and what that, how you really experienced it that way. Because, you know, that sounds to me like it might really loop back into the wounded inner child and somehow feeling like you're choosing yourself because it's something in the unconscious that's being projected out to that person. Because we, you know, anybody with codependency that's with a cluster B or after it or whatever the case, they're given way too much importance. And that's the piece that goes back to the unconscious about somebody in your life, especially in childhood, that had that kind of importance. So that gets kind of, I don't want to use the word transferred or you know, but it gets projected out, but not knowingly onto a cluster B, or even for someone with BPD who's with somebody else with BPD, because a lot of that happens too, or people with BPD that end up with narcissists. Not that they're doing that because they want to be punished, not that they're consciously, not that they're doing that because that's the only person for them, but likely it's a repetition compulsion. So, you know, there's so much about this that is, I guess there's no other word to use, but I don't mean to make it sound like BPD, but there's a projective identification. There's a collusion, an enmeshment, and it usually is for people with codependency in adulthood. It's mirroring. It's the expression of something that you did with a parent, something that happened to you in childhood. The tree octopus, they will send you insane. Well, if you, yes, they have a tendency to do that. But then the thing is, you know, we have to stop short before, you know, that happens, or essentially because we have responsibility for ourselves, though people with codependency are giving themselves, you know, like ignoring self and giving to the other ridiculously. I mean, ridiculously in the sense that the other doesn't even get help by it, doesn't even accept it, doesn't want it. But that kind of self abandonment, it adds to the whole picture of what drives people crazy, or in loose terminology, and or seriously really does wound people. And you know, people with codependency have to come to realize, like I shared what, you know, and what I did, what happened to me, with me, and for me, and what I chose in 2006. And the key part of sharing that was to say, I didn't feel ready, but I guess I knew one thing, and that was I was not going to allow her BS in my life anymore. Because, like I said, the night before this, the lies, the things that hurt me like really deeply, that I found out that, I always knew they were probably lies, but I actually talk about no closure. I got a little bit of sideways confirmation from this person when I put a few of these things to them face to face, and they didn't answer me. Like, they didn't even try to give an answer or dance out of it or gaslight me. And then they just looked over at the wall, and so I asked the questions again, rapid fire, and they kind of shook their head, yes, up and down was about the best they could do. I didn't even need that confirmation at the point of silence and no protesting no, that's not true, whatever. It was like, it was obvious. But even with that, I didn't even need that, though. See? So really, the truth of the matter that people don't realize often, yet consciously, when you're still involved or you're just getting out of it, or is that they seem like they're so powerful to hurt you, but it's because you're allowing it, and that's the unconscious piece. And then it just might feel like a tangled, like some kind of a trap you just can't climb out of. But it isn't, because you can climb out of it, but it feels impossible. Cargill, sure, I try to do anything I can for my partner because it makes me feel needed. Aha. Well, and what do you think? Why do you think? And you don't have to answer me, but the next question that would come to my mind is, what do people think it means when somebody will do anything they can for another person, partner, ex, whatever it is, um, whatever relationship type, even, because it makes you feel needed. So then the question is, why do you feel like your worth is how much you're needed, right? And then the painful reality under that is because, somehow in childhood, something, but you're still, no matter how old you are now, you're still living your life in a way where you need to be needed to feel worthy. That's what the connector is. And that's something that's very painful for people to start looking at, as opposed to keep doing this overgiving. And it's is it really the overgiving that it seems like, when what you just said, Cargill, alludes to the reality that you have an awareness, and many people have some awareness to different things. You have an awareness that you do this because, and you overgive or whatever it takes, so you can feel needed, because that's, for lack of a better way to put it, your where you derive any self-worth from, in the place of where self-worth isn't for some reason in your life right now inside of you. So is it really even overgiving? Because there's always that, in psychology, that secondary payoff gain. And that's usually always negative, but needed. In terms of, like how Cargill just said, because it makes her feel needed, and she needs to feel needed. Then people need to ask, why do I need to feel needed? Why is my self-worth equal? Like, if I'm not needed, I don't have any worth. If I'm not needed, I can't be loved. That's heavy. That's deep. That's painful stuff. And Joe said, I think I needed to be needed because I felt like my mom and dad didn't need me because of being stuck in the foster homes at a very young age. Well, yes, and actually that sounds like you've sort of turned that around from your mom and dad didn't need you to how much you needed them, but they betrayed you. And the tree octopus, my girlfriend is insanely jealous, calls me a liar, a cheat, I'm disgusting, etc. over nothing. I finish it, she apologizes, and then 15 minutes later she does it again. So why am I still here? And then you put a laugh out loud at the end, which I don't understand, because it doesn't sound funny to me. But um, why you're still there? Well, that's a question. Really, to tell you the truth, Tree Octopus, you're only going to really be able to start exploring the answer to that question when you take the action that feels impossible to not still be there. because it's like there's something playing out there with this person for you. Well, that definitely goes back, it goes back to your childhood somehow. And you might not be consciously aware of how that what that means yet. But what I tried to share in my example of that relationship that I had with the BPD NPD alcoholic way back is that you can't feel ready. It isn't going to feel right. It's going to be painful. It's scary. It can lead to anxiety and panic attacks. But each person needs to extricate themselves. And it's best done probably in, working with somebody. And when I work with clients, I help them to strategize about how they're going to cope, how they're going to make this choice to leave, etc., etc. But, she's projecting onto you what she's likely doing, by the way, Tree Octopus. So, you might not really have the answer to why are you still there, but what you need to start thinking more about is how much you need not to be there anymore and how difficult and painful that will be because you'll never feel ready to leave. But it's only if and when you choose to leave that you're going to be able to find your way through a process of healing and answer the question, why are you still there? Or why were you still there, when it will be a past tense question. But like I said, with that BPD NPD alcoholic, I was in 2004, 2006. I never figured out the why. And guess what? I healed and I couldn't, and all these years later, I don't know. And I don't care. So we don't always have to figure it all out. Joe, well, I didn't know my dad, but that's probably a whole other piece. Well, yes, definitely. Cargill, yes, the need to be needed is crazy. Well, it's, that's, the way you put that, it's like, no, the need to be needed is what's at the depth and root of a lot of your pain. It's not crazy. It's about pain that you're trying not to deal with right now, I guess. It has always been with relationships, never with anyone else. Well, you see what I mean? Like, because you're avoiding something in yourself in these relationships. The tree octopus, it's like she has to create a drama to get her energy fix. Well, they do. They often do. They're very much addicted to chaos and drama. And especially if they grew up with it, which many people with BPD did grow up with it. It feels like she thrives on it. Well, she probably does thrive on it, which is not healthy, but it's very patterned for a lot of people with BPD. In reality, I see she's broken and actually thought I could help and do love her, but I can't. Well, yes, and is love really healthy love when all it gives you is diminishing returns and pain? But I hear you, how you feel. But, that's a self sacrificing, self abandoning type of love, um, at the very least, which isn't the good news for anybody. But I just think I just hope people can take away something from what I shared, that it's never going to feel like the right time. It's not going to feel good, but people need to extricate themselves from these relationships and get into healing and recovery. And if, I mean, I didn't answer the ultimate why of that relationship with the BPD NPD alcoholic 2004 to 2006, but when you learn what you need to learn, and when you find yourself and then you find more of yourself and you do your work, you really won't care why anymore. So it's not that I didn't have other pieces of understanding and then learn more even after. Of course that helps. But if we stay with them, then we're going to stay in the pattern that is codependency, that is its own unhealthy relational pattern, and it's not going to allow us to learn maybe something. It allows people to learn something about themselves, but the bigger awareness and the real healing and growth journey that needs to happen and recovery journey isn't possible until you set that boundary and you go no contact and you put yourself first. And I know I've been there. That's why I tried to relate. That's why I related the story. That, okay, so maybe I was in a stronger place because I had been through a lot prior and on both sides of the fence, but with BPD, not NPD. But the thing is, then I felt like an even, well, I don't know, bigger fool that maybe everybody feels. But we get so hard on ourselves. And what's that about? Well, that's the injunctions of childhood. That's what the, all the rules that were in your family of origin, not that were ever told to you. They're just implied. That's why they're injunctions. And they're taken on and understood. Like, don't talk, don't feel, don't bug me, whatever those injunctions are. And then they get seeded, interjected into the internal critic, and the internal critic gets in between you and this wounded inner child you have. And then what do people do with these relationships? And when we trying to get out of it, but like, I've invested so much and all these conflicts, it's like then people are afraid of their own pain, feels impossible to go forward. You can't imagine that you could heal or learn more or change and grow. And the other thing is, it's so compelling because there's something seemingly that they offer. Whether it's even chaos or drama, anything for some people with codependency to keep them away from their own pain and what you need to learn more about yourself. And Joe said, AJ, I seem to be stuck in a cycle with my ex where she says things like, it's too bad it couldn't have worked out, and I couldn't let go of my need to control her, and then I feel the need to defend. Well, yeah, and that's just, for lack of a better way to put it, part of the cycle, right? And part of the problem of staying in contact with them when they'll say things like, it's too bad it couldn't have worked out, and then, and yeah, your need to control her, which at least you're aware of. A lot of codependents aren't aware of the need to control. It's because it really triggers and taps into the primal, the wounded inner child that sought this way of being, people pleasing, over giving, codependent, whatever you want to call it, for survival needs in childhood. So it becomes extremely maladaptive in adulthood. It just hurts more and more. It never helps. And then you said how much I cared about her and how good I treated her, and basically called her a liar. And what I need to do is absolutely drop the contact. Yes, actually, that would really help you a lot, but it's also painful, but it's a big step forward. Difficult though. Cargo, I always take away something from your stories. Well, that's good, because I mean, I shared that in particular for a reason, germane to this idea of why aren't people getting out of the obsessive thinking and the ruminating and the being stuck in the false hope. Because if you're looking for the whys and the wherefores, or you're still avoiding yourself, those are the biggest reasons, and you're not going to be able to help yourself, and you're not going to get the whys or the wherefores or the lessons more important than the why, whether you ever answer the why. I never answered it. So that's why I shared that, though, because I'm not somebody who just gets on here and talks about it. I've been on both sides of it, and I know how impossible it feels, and I know how compelling it is. And, my codependency was still pretty strong in 2006. I really had to wrestle with that. But yet there was something in those moments that I was clearly getting, but not really realizing I was getting, that I had to finally choose me. And that choosing me meant really totally not, like rejecting this other person, and that was okay to do. And of course, that tied in somewhat still back to my BPD NPD mother, because in the unconscious. And so I feel like I worked out another great big piece of that. And I've been able to change my life since then. I have not, well, there was the quiet BPD, yes, but it was different because I was not responding to her out of codependency at all. That's why I didn't figure out she had quiet BPD. That's why I didn't see what was coming when it came. when she took her life. That's why I was like oblivious, really, to tell you the truth, because everything she did, like canceling plans and not talking to me for certain periods. So I just went on with my life. I wasn't in some codependent place called "What's going on now? Why is she doing that?" So it was all a shock to me at the end, which doesn't seem to make any more sense than, but like, it's really the degree to which people don't have lost themselves, and yes, more so in these relationships, but somehow in early childhood lost a part of self. It's that lost part of self that goes on in these codependent relational patterns, or people with BPD is different, but the codependent unhealthy relational patterns are, it's the unconscious, in your unconscious mind, that fragmented, a little bit off, or to whatever degree in people, it wounded inner child that's driving you all over the planet emotionally. But until you make that connection, it might not even sound like what I'm saying makes sense. And I'm glad that you get help from what I share, Cargo, because that's the reason I share it. Joe, because looking for this kind of closure or admission is just hurting myself, correct? Yes, it definitely is, because sometimes there's a modicum of, you figure something out, and then, like I did with that BP and PD alcoholic X, at that point I figured something out, but I figured something out in the relationship, and then I figured out another piece. Then I took that action, and then I learned even more, and I grew even more, and I had. And the other part of all this is, you have to really be willing to learn. This is why people need therapy, to learn to stop, ragging all over yourself about, why did this happen? Why did I let this happen? How could this person do this to me? And you gotta, because that's the other thing I help a lot of clients with. That's like half of the work right there, because it's really going to ultimately be about stopping judging yourself, which is often a repetition compulsion from something that happened in many people with codependency, that happened in your childhood. So it's connecting all these dots that, and really being in this healing and recovery process I'm always talking about, that really makes the difference. Um, because, to what you just said there, Joe, the closure that people are looking for, believe it or not, it's not closure with the cluster B. It's closure from something that happened to you in your childhood. And that's what catapulted you, among other things, into the relationship with the cluster B in the first place. So the closure piece is multi-layered, complex, and multifaceted. But the biggest closure piece that every codependent needs today, who's still in the realm, or like dealing with a cluster B at all, it's not going to come from them. And that no closure keeps you hooked in there, and ruminating, etc. Because the closure that you really need to find is from your own childhood, is from within, is from your self-abandonment. So it's kind of working it backwards in a healing and recovery journey, because they're not that powerful. Has anybody ever thought about, why does it seem like I have no power here, and that everything is about this cluster B? Well, it's not really, because they're not that powerful at all. The tree octopus, you're right. It is a love, but a very toxic, destructive one. Well, yes, it is, and I just don't like to say that outright to people, because some people really take offense sometimes. And it's painful. You said also, Trioctopus, and it's painful that BPD are so self-destructive. True. If they could learn to trust, well, yeah, but they can't, because they don't have a self. But like, in many years of therapy, they could learn to trust. But if they could learn to trust, they could have it all. The BPD distorts their reality. Well, let me just say, yes, the reality is distorted at times, more so than others, but especially in relationships. But the BPD doesn't distort the reality, because I've heard other YouTubers kind of talking about BPD like it's an entity all by itself. No, it's the adverse childhood experience that creates what, quote, BPD unquote really is. It's the experience It's what happened in their childhood that's distorting the reality. It's not, quote, the BPD, unquote, like it's an entity or a power onto itself. People with BPD have horrific repetition compulsions that are all primarily self-destructive, and that's the tragedy of that. Humongous. What advice would you give to people who are at the beginning of no contact and are in brain fog? I'm currently in therapy and I'm feeling better, but still think about her um, sometimes. Well, sometimes it's better than all the time, so it's, gradual. But I think, what advice do I give to people who are at the beginning of no contact? Well, get in therapy. It's good you're in therapy, right? In the brain fog. Well, you gotta start. I don't know, because not I don't know how other therapists work, right? But the way I work with clients is sort of like it's very dualistic, I guess we could say. So a lot of talk about the relationship and a lot of trying to understand about that, but at the same time connecting it to other pieces and sort of trying to help clients to get a dual process going there because one helps inform the other. So I think at the beginning of no contact, the main thing is to know that you need to choose yourself, time to put yourself first. You are in therapy, so getting therapy is the other part. And just listen to a couple of those video clips or live stream clips I put up recently. Try to be mindful to the present, to the moment, to refocusing your thoughts, and maybe just refocusing your thoughts on what is right now. Other things people can do is try distraction techniques. The bottom line is just not to be thinking too much about them in a way that could pull you back, right, out of your no contact into, and be aware of feelings of if you feel sorry for them or if you think you have too much empathy for them. Well, it's time to have compassion for yourself. Think about yourself. Shift everything to yourself. So focus on the no contact and maybe write out a list of all the reasons why you went no contact to help remind yourself when maybe you start to think on the other side of the cognitive dissonance and or feel on the other side. But thinking about her sometimes is, that's going to happen for a while. So if it's sometimes versus all the time, then you're already making progress. And Joe said, aha. Cargill, yes, I beat myself up all the time, and it may not even always be my fault. Well, and here's the thing: what fault? People are always like, okay, fault. That word is tricky because what's your fault versus what's your responsibility versus what's their responsibility. See, fault is kind of this thing that just muddies up the middle, really. Probably adds to brain fog because it's not about, well, you're at fault or they're at fault. It's about this thing isn't working, right? This is codependence in action and or whatever else, and it's not working. And it's sometimes two people, if they both have BPD with codependency, losing themselves. Nobody's going to get bound in these relationships. Nobody's going to get bound in this equation. There is no like, oh, it's going to work out. We're both going to find each other. Like the misnomer and the delusion of couples therapy, right? Like some people still do that. I don't know why, but couples therapy is designed for different kind of issues, not when you're with a cluster B, right? So, but the thing is, when people are beating themselves up, it's like you already learned how to do that in childhood or somewhere along the way. It didn't just start with this person, and it's like right there is lack of self-esteem, lack of self-worth. Um, you don't when people can beat themselves up, I mean, everybody can do it a little bit here and there. But when people beat themselves up and there's kind of like no boundary or limit or no, hey, wait a minute, I gotta be kinder to myself than that. It's like that's how bad you feel about yourself for whatever the reasons are. It's not accurate, like what you're thinking, what you're likely, the negative core beliefs you have about yourself anyone, I'm not just talking to you, car girl, they're not necessarily true about you at all. But, in childhood, in various many ways, to varying different degrees, people lose enough of sense of self or a piece of self to the point where they don't have esteem and they don't have worth and they don't feel worthy. And if you don't feel worthy, there's a shame wound in there somewhere, because shame is the wound that tells children not that you did something bad, but that a parent thinks or thought at a point in time that you are bad. And then people carry around, I'm bad. And then there becomes this sort of like cognitively distorted, well, like, okay, who's really at fault here? Because, like, he or she did this and I tried to do that. But, like, really, that's not going to help anybody. Fault and blame and guilt. What's going to help is finding getting a foothold into your personal responsibility. So, what are you responsible for, first and foremostly? Whatever, whether it's a person with BPD or the narcissist that's never going to get to personal responsibility, or the codependent, you're responsible first and foremostly to yourself, for your own mental health, for your own well being, for your own knowing yourself, for your own being the one to bring to your life, get in a healing recovery process, work with somebody, heal yourself, know yourself, understand yourself. That's what's lacking in people with codependency. And actually, people with codependency and trying to rescue all these people with BPD or NPD or whatever, you're really trying to get that wounded inner child rescued too. And so, not to say they're the same, but people with BPD have the object other, parent representation kind of thing going on. And I'm not saying it's that deep in codependency, but if you've had a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic parent or a borderline parent, and that's where your codependency comes from, it could be almost as deep. Because here's the good news and the bad news. The overlap between codependency and BPD, because people with BPD have codependency too. Well, people with codependency aren't always don't have BPD, but that overlap means that the difference between people who have BPD on the surface, okay, so to speak, and people with codependency, that's one thin line, and nobody really wants to hear that. So I don't do a video called "Hey, the thin line," but that's really at the heart of the reality of all this. That people who have BPD probably had more adverse childhood experience more often than not, or the perception of said, which is just as real as if, and a more sensitive temperament. And people with codependency, varying degrees, right? But some people with codependency have had almost as much difficulty and hard, adverse childhood experience with a cluster B parent, but they had more emotional resiliency, and or one parent was a narcissist or a borderline, and the other parent might have been a good codependent, but they might have been able to be a stabilizing factor in a child's life that prevents them from getting BPD or NPD. So these things are not entirely different, but they are different in other ways. But the lines between them, the distance between them, is oh so not that great in terms of experience in childhood, and sensitive temperament versus more resiliency, and a whole lot of other moving pieces. AR, I had to fight the urge to tell her what she does right now. New supply, triangulation, playing victim is all part of her BPD. It's useless, even she's in therapy and very aware. She just can't. And I would take it that you would finish that sentence with stop it or get it or change it. Um, Well, it's good, it's good that you fight the urge to tell her because it won't help. But like, is this something you should keep investing in? I mean, that's a question you have to answer. But well, a lot of people, with BPD and or perhaps some narcissistic traits or comorbidity both, who knows, they go to therapy, but they don't engage it, or they're not there for the right reason, or they're not working with a good fit, of somebody that could really help them. So, I mean, I've seen in working with people for 30 plus years that some people with BPD, or if they have BPD with narcissistic traits, or if they have BPD comorbid NPD, it gets even more complicated. But they are very much some people with BPD are really aware and they're ready and they can change, and they're a joy to work with even when it's difficult, because you can see them getting better. You can see them making change. But I've worked with lots of clients where it's just been, I shouldn't say a struggle, but yeah, they made things quite a struggle, and then I had to not do countertransference in the situation. But a lot of people in therapy with BPD are just simply not engaging it. They're resisting, they're arguing, they're fighting the therapist, they're transferring all over the therapist, which can be a good thing in certain modalities if you can help them. But sometimes they're just talking about what's bugging them in the here and now every day, and they're not really dealing with their problems. And then AR said, yes, I'm no contact for almost 3 weeks now after 7 months on off. Well, congratulations on the 3 weeks no contact. You really got to hold that. That's going to be how you can start to turn back toward yourself and to getting into a healing and recovery journey. And yeah, this other aspect of people, so when you've gone no contact and you're starting to try to, make that journey away from them, then I've had so many clients that recontact because they have this urge, like you said, to tell them what they've done or how you've been affected, or that they might have this, or and they should really. But the thing is, please know that no contact, once you get there, you got to hold on to that. And again, it would be self-sacrificing to, whether people are no contact yet or not. It's self-sacrificing to try to tell them how you've been impacted, how you feel, or what you think is wrong with them, or what they need more help with, because that's not your responsibility. And so that's what people really, especially when you get to no contact, be really careful not to reach back for that really unhelpful, unhealthy, self sacrificing reason, because that still means there's a desire there, which is natural that it will be there for a little while, but you have to kind of really not focus on it. That if only they could do this or that, it would work out. But the fact is, they don't just need to be in therapy, they need to be in therapy for a good 8 to 10 years to really be able to change the landscape, to find a self, to reparent that self, to undo all to break down all the defense mechanisms, to then build back up a real self. It is an incredible journey. I've taken it. I know it's an incredible journey, and it takes 10 to 16, 8 to 16 years, but 10 to 16 years probably. Like, it just is such a long journey for people. And the reward at the end is that, yes, you can come out of it like I did. I know myself. I'm fully integrated. It's as if I never had it. And that is the truth. And I know there are other people out there who know what I know. And the bottom line is, anything short of that, you're not going to do well in relationships. People with BPD. Just like people with codependency need to really heal the codependency, or you're going to go on, even if you get with somebody that isn't a cluster B, the codependency is still going to somehow screw up stuff in your life. It's really important to heal, and it's just, and it's so worth the time and effort that it takes, but it is not simple stuff. And it requires an active commitment and choice. AR, true. I focus on healing my codependency. She tried to hoover me 2 times so far. I won't go back. Good for you. And when you say she tried to hoover, I hope your no contact has her blocked every which way to Sunday. Because for some people, the way that they'll get hoovered is the person will catch you out on the street, or the person will come to your house or where you live. And if that happens, the first time that happens, it's time to call the police and say it's unwanted contact and start to document, because there's no space or room to give to that kind of stuff. It's too dangerous because some people can really know I'm not going to get pulled back no matter what. But other people can feel strongly that way, and next thing you know, uh-oh. So it's really important to make that no contact, extremely full no contact, and stick to that. It's so, so important. I cannot emphasize that enough. So, but I think that, like I said, I'm going to have more coming on the websites. I'm still going to do videos here. I'm looking at what I'm going to do with the membership, how I'm going to make that work. I want to make it work. There's a couple things probably needs a little bit more tweaking. And we'll have a video up soon for members, and etc. So I always would love more feedback, but often you don't get it, but because people are very, passive, and of course you've all got your stuff going on, and so, but I'd really like more feedback about what people might find helpful to see in videos on the channel, because I know there's those videos that I do that people really still need to watch, and newer people will need to watch. But for people who are starting to move forward with no contact, etc., and starting to focus more on self, it's like I think it's time that I have enough videos up for people in that readiness as well. So it's yeah. So but that's why I'm going to make more available on the websites and in the membership. Of course, I don't always know with members where they're at either. So yeah. Anyways, I think I was just reiterating what I said because I got to wrap up here soon. And Cargill said, yes, AJ, you said even if not with a cluster B, codependency must be healed. I failed to say that my partner is, in my humble opinion, pretty healthy. I need to talk with you about that too. Oh yeah, sure, I can understand that. And Joe, AJ, you have the timing of a saint today, and the topic was exact. Well, I'm really glad because, this is a topic that more people need to hear more about, whether they think they're ready for it or not. And so I've had, well, thank you, Cargirl. And so I put up the couple live stream clips before the last one. I can't remember what the last one was, and I just did it this morning. But yeah, whatever. I think it was sort of like maybe a similar track, but different. So those two that were really about mindfulness and focusing on the moment and shifting focus. I mean, I think that's as important as anything else I can do here as well. And so sometimes those videos aren't as well watched because there's a lot of people that aren't in that space of readiness yet. So, but I guess, yeah, it doesn't matter what I'm doing at my end. But I just noticed that there are narratives out there, and the more that I intersect with a lot of narratives for different reasons and more academic, philosophical ways, the bottom line is I look at the narrative on the channel and I sometimes know what I feel about it in terms of, like yesterday, for example, though I spent the day with my partner, had a great day. But like if I wasn't otherwise busy yesterday, I would not have done a single thing online because I didn't have a word to say. Because sometimes I get in a space called, yeah, that. So, and that's what the other channel is about too. And I haven't done enough over there yet. But it's like, I'm trying to find a way to help people to inch forward. Now, that's not my responsibility, it's people's choices, right? But then I sometimes just get to the point, which I think it's okay. Once in a while, I'm just burnt out. I'm like, I can't say one more freaking thing about BPD in a video. So I think I'm going to do a lot more, as well as some of those videos still, because new people are always coming along too. And I don't know where everybody else is. I'm going to do a lot more on codependency. I'm going to do a lot more on some other things, just like on my other channel. And the hope is that some of you who are more ready for different things will join my other channel and watch some videos over there. And I want to stress again, I'm going to live stream over there too, but I haven't yet because what you all need to know is on the other channel in live streams, no labels, okay? So you come to a live stream on the other channel, you're going to have to talk about something in general. You can kind of refer to like an unhealthy person that was in your life, but no labels because on that channel, I want to bring people who are ready, join if you're ready, more to the table in a live stream of let's talk way more about you without the labely of the label of the person and all that that means, you know? So, because there's so many moving pieces to this that people may be aware of, may not yet be aware of when they're still stuck in the ruminating or obsessing or focusing or the false hope, with the cluster B. And Joe said 5 minutes prior, back and forth, blame game, text fest with the ex. Well, yeah, and I mean, people with codependency get kind of used to that chaos and drama too, because it gives that that secondary gain payoff of helping the codependent stay out of the codependent's pain. And that's something that people with codependency need to understand and need to start to lean into a bit instead of avoiding, because it's the only way forward. Cargo. Oh, and I meant to say I really dig the live stream clips. Oh, thank you. I think they're doing okay because I only have 495 live streams that aren't on the channel to pick from. And so when I take 12 minutes out of one, it's no fun doing it though. It takes hours. But when I take 12 minutes out of one, it's not like there's not a lot of 12 minutes in a 3 hour. So and there's 495 of them. Can you believe that? I started streaming in the fall of 2017. By the way, the reason why I've had this sort of habit that I'm going to get away from and more, this wasn't the most structured live stream I came to do. But when I do the more structured ones, as I will be more often than not, and on the other channel, that means I know my point of information. I know what my points are going to be. And then I want people to engage me on those. But I like the way this one went, because whatever. But my point is that, so the live stream clips, and why are there 495 live streams I have that are down and available to be all chopped up and put back up? And because, not that anything is wasted time, it's not. But a lot of those hours, I'm glad I spent all that time and all those hours. I learned tremendously, and I hope it benefited other people. But what I cut out for the live stream clips is I cut out all the stuff that really we were getting into the minutia of stuff and or off topic that then really just took away from what I was trying to do and what other people needed, and I think what would help people. So I'm glad you dig those, Car Girl, and I hope more people will, because there's a plethora of them to come, I swear. So I'm finding it an actually relaxing activity, except for when I see some of the things I was doing 2 years ago on live streams. I'm like, oh, good, I get to cut that out now. Just stupid things, I would say. Because I was always frustrated with the process back then, but I've learned, and it's different now. Darius, hi there. In my case, it wasn't Hoover. She had some problems and tried to apologize for past mistakes. We talked by week. I think she's back to new source of supply. I think there are problems in paradise. Selfish. Well, yes, and you know what? Not that I'm advocating that you be selfish, but time for you to think about you, right? Not her anymore. Whether, it's working out with the new person or not working out with the new person, and if it crashes with the new person, you don't need to be the one that she can come back to. Think about you. What about you? I say that in a really compassionate, caring way. Cargo, so glad you got to spend the day with your partner. I was in a funk yesterday and today until the stream. We in the US have Labor Day tomorrow. Off tomorrow. Yeah, well, it's Labor Day here, but guess who'll be working anyway? I'll be laboring anyway. Because I always forget about the holidays. Because, I work a lot, but, with my partner now, like, basically I don't work weekends anymore. So this is making my structured schedule incredibly difficult all week and packed. And the other thing is, so I've already run into one problem with a member. And hey, by the way, Cargo, thanks for joining the membership. That's your green little badge there. You green people, thank you for your joining the membership, the channel membership. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate everybody, but appreciate you members. Just a little shout out to you in that regard. And I just want to say, so I've already got a member that time, what do you call it? Zone difference. Um, I might have to for a few of the 20-minute Zoom chats. I might have to put them on the weekend, but I've got this pretty bounded thing around weekends right now because yeah, I was working too much, and when I was single, etc. And after my partner took her life, in December 27, 2018, I was like in a world of hurt. I was looking for ways to not feel that, although I had to feel it and deal with it. But now it's like, yeah, weekends and, just chilling and being with my partner. Not that I don't see her at other times too, but it's a good thing it works for us because she's a very busy individual as well. So that's a healthy thing. You know, Neither one of us are worried about when the other one is too busy, kind of thing. But we do have to make time for each other and be, what's the word? Well, caring about each other. Cargo 495. Yes. That doesn't include the 20 or 30 that are up right now or this one. Must take a long time to pick a segment. Well, I have a lot of them. Some of them are still on YouTube on private. Some of them are down. Most of I took like almost, I mean, the count, I don't think it shows to the public, but the count somewhere in the back of my analytics still says I had like 997 videos. And I took about 450 or 495 of those down. Then I got really penalized in the algorithm. And then, so I've been live streaming again, and then the clips coming back up and uploading more because, well, to help the algorithm, to help the channel grow, to help to get bound so people can get help if I resonate with you. And yeah, what I find is I just look at one, I'll just click on one. And the last few I've clicked on, I found the beginning has been really good. So I can go from the beginning, cut out some things, and there's the clip. But then later I'm going to have to go back into the middle to so I just fast forward through them and I go, oh yeah, this part, okay. And then there might be some like I have up on the other channel that came all from basically, except for a couple others, most of the ones on my other channel came from one live stream. And the thing is, so it could be 7 minutes here and 9 minutes. It doesn't matter because just trying to get just the parts that I think will be most helpful to people out, right? So it hasn't really involved people's questions because often whatever I was talking about, they asked me stuff on other stuff. So there's quite a few of them where it was BPD Q&As. So I've got to parse through those and try to find some of the best questions and then what I think might be the most helpful answers I gave. So, yeah. Anyway, a lot of material there that I got to repurpose. Um, Darius, I know I feel so weak. Well, there you are. You're judging yourself there when you say you feel weak, but I hear you. Um, I go into no contact. Said to her, quote, don't contact me anymore. I know about the new guy, unquote. She understands my words for 4 months, so I take it that's been going on for 4 months. Well, Darius, it's not a weakness. It's just you need to develop boundaries, right? You need to learn more about yourself and your codependency and start healing and recovering in that journey. So, try to be kind to yourself. It's not weakness. It's just very, very difficult, right? And Joe, this stream put me in a better place. Time for a walk on the beach tonight. Oh, good. I'm glad you have a beach around to go walk on. I don't live near a beach. That's lovely. Cargirl, I can do Zoom chats at work during the week or anytime you have an opening. My schedule is super flexible. Well, that's great. Because I'm going to have to, yeah, I have to compromise with somebody on a weekend for sure. But I'm trying not to do that. So, and then I'm looking at the schedule and it's like, so I have somebody scheduled, I forget for what day this week, from like 1:10 to 1:30, right? So if I could find somebody else that could do, and I'll email you, Cargirl, or email me please, so I can email you again, because there's been thousands of emails since last. Sorry. But the thing is, maybe I could fit you in on the same day from like 1:30 to 10 to 2, because then after that I'm going to be with clients for hours. But that's what I'm looking at doing. Where do I have an hour where I could get two people or three people actually at 20 minutes, right? That's an hour. I can't even count. But yeah. So I'll work it out. It's just when I have to on a weekend I don't like it, but hey. Um I may end up working weekends again, or at least one day or half a day just because of overflow, because I'm really busy. Martin, my ex, quiet BPD, is currently out of the country, but intends returning as soon as possible to a relationship that she jumped into on rebound. The problem is our country has the world's highest, um, I'm not sure what that means, but some of the highest statistics to do with something. And you said, and having had family and friends who experienced it, I just can't stand by and do nothing. And you're obsessed to prevent it. She's currently hospitalized for BPD treatment. Okay, so I don't know what GBB statistics means. I'm sorry. Um, uh, oh, gender based. Oh, okay. Um, yes, another narrative that. So, do you mean, Martin, that she's going to come back to you as soon as possible, or is this somebody else? And if so, where are you at? Like, are you? Do you consider yourself an exhibist? Oh, you said you're quiet. Your ex is quiet BPD. Um, so I wonder how involved are you with where she is and what's happening to her, versus how much are you starting to look at your own, um, your own need, yourself and your own need to heal and recover. Sorry, I need to make that a full sentence. Um, because a lot of people, that's the other thing, right? People tend to really be involved and are worried about, etc. People with an ex with BPD when they're your ex, and it's like it's time to let go because it's not your responsibility. It never was, but it's not now. And Darius, from my side, it's not just codependency, it's covert narcissism too. However, I try not to be my disorder. It's hard. She even said to me, quote, I don't believe you were so good for me, unquote. Um, so codependency, I don't know if that's what the C means, or CBPD plus CNPD equals disaster. Yes, and are you saying a codependent borderline and codependent narcissist? And I don't know, Darius. Do you think that do you think that you're a fragile narcissist, a vulnerable narcissist, or where do you fit? Do you think in that? Because the other thing I just really want to say, and since you mentioned that, Darius, is that people with NPD are not all the same. They're not all beyond help. They're not all unaware. So again, this is the YouTube narratives out there. I'm sure many are helpful, but many go far astray because it's always this idea of divide and conquer. So if you've been hurt by a narcissist, they're all this. You've been hurt with people, they're all this. There's no monolithic group of anybody, anywhere, under any label, any group at all. So I just want to make that clear. So and I wanted to make that clear, and I want to say to you, Darius, that you seem to have awareness, and that's great, and that you can be treated for that and codependency if you so choose. Make sure you choose carefully who you work with, but it's not true what they say about people with narcissism always, or narcissistic personality, or narcissistic traits. That stuff drives me crazy, can you tell? Cargo, yes, I'll email you tonight. Thanks, AJ. Well, thank you, and I'm sorry to have to ask you again, because but oh, hey there, Nancy. Oh, thank you for that. I do my best, and I'm just following my, the more I'm not even going to talk about, I'm always into other stuff, but the philosophy of things, which I hope to bring more to my other channel about, and the narratives, and not only what's going on in the world now, the obvious thing, but and more, but what's been happening with academia and radical fifth wave feminism and left versus right and the hijacking of what is social justice and all this stuff. And then so I get my mind entrenched in this kind of stuff. I like to read books. You know, my partner has something to do with, you know, she's, well, I guess I can say this much, but she is, I think, soon to retire, but she's been a university professor in a field that's adjacent or similar and or that I've been involved with. So we have a lot of these conversations and it's great. And we read similar books or the same books or we listen to books together and all of this stuff. It's like, so when I'm thinking about all this other stuff, of course, the only connection I'm going to make here is to say narratives, okay? So narratives, to just reduce it down to that, it's simplistic. And then I started looking at, when I was looking at all this other stuff and philosophy and narratives and the more academic stuff I'm not going to get into here just because it's not, you know, it doesn't belong here. Um then I was like, wow, look at the narrative here on my own channel. What narrative am I in? What narrative are people that want to, you know, interface with the channel, watch videos, whatever? So I'm looking at this from a narrative perspective now, which probably doesn't give you a broad enough idea of what I'm talking about, but I don't want to, you know, muddle it all up with that. And it's fascinating. Let me just put it that way. And it's also giving me more of a focused idea of how to do more of what I want to do to help people more, but without it having to be sort of like, not, well, you know, I think about where people are at, but I can't know where people are at. Sort of a, I'm lost for words on how to describe this since I'm half describing something. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is more experimentation around topic areas and broadening it out so that even if that's not really like well watched, and I don't care, I'm gonna start doing that, and then maybe people who are watching the other kind of videos and in that narrative can start to kind of go, oh, this is over here, or like my other channel. I know there's billions of channels out there and stuff people watch too, but I'm just saying for my little effort here. Thanos. Are BPD people shallow in general? Um, well, less until they get therapy, likely because they don't know themselves and they don't know who they are. So their feelings certainly aren't shallow, but what they often don't understand, their feelings are usually all about them and their survival. They don't realize the impact they have on others if they're untreated or unaware, or even if they have intellectual awareness, it's not going to change the way they relate or behave necessarily. And you said also when it comes to romantic relationships, um, shallow. Well, I would say it's more like they don't have the identity. They don't know who they are. They're lacking that self unless and until significant treatment. So in that regard, it's like, is it shallow, or is it more to the point that they just aren't who everybody thinks they are when they first start relating to them? In the case of partnerships and romantic relationships, it's I think it's more that than it is a shallowness. There's an emptiness there. It's not the same as the emptiness in narcissistic personality, but there's a space where the self should be. So they can't really be deep. So I guess in a way I'm agreeing that yeah, they are shallow. It's not the best way to describe it, but yeah, I think what you're saying makes sense. Nancy, my BPD daughter told me she doesn't have the bandwidth to deal with me. Well, that's interesting, Nancy, because my BPD NPD mother told me, I guess not in those words, but kind of same thing. Kind of like years ago, right? Like you, excuse me, why don't you just get on with your life? Like, who are you again? So similar thing, you know, but on the other side of the coin. And I'm sorry to hear that, but I mean, I really do. I really do feel mother for you, like as a mother of a daughter with BPD, because you have to work that radical acceptance and mindfulness so hard. You know, you really have to get yourself into like a Zen-like place. Yes, it's so painful. You have to get yourself in the most Zenful, radical accepting mindfulness place you can get to, because like in romantic relationships, whether or not your BPD daughter will find the bandwidth to deal with you, as she puts it, which is a very self-centered statement, isn't it, to make on her part, is going to depend on whether or not she gets successful treatment. And it kind of leaves you in, especially as a mother, it leaves mothers in the 25% in a sort of suspended, animated place of a lot of pain. Hey there, Victor. It's been almost 2 years since she, undiagnosed BPD, cheated on me and left me for someone else. We were married with a kid. She seemed so happy for a while. Lately, I've seen her and she looks awful. Well, sort I guess she's not taking care of herself. Um, but I hope that you're, not. Oh, you're wondering why that she seemed so happy for a while, and then lately you saw her and she looks awful. Well, and unhealthy. Well, probably because she's still not getting any help, and whatever that means in her life and her patterns, it's probably getting to be higher cost and more um, self damaging, unfortunately. But I hope that, well, and I mean, if you have a kid together, obviously the mother of your child, you're going to care about that aspect. But beyond that, you really have to detach and know that whatever is going on with her is ultimately her responsibility, not yours. Humongous. Is it possible to have BPD without the attachment trauma and constant need for attention? Self harm, addictions, are they just side effects of what is actually going on? Um, well, to a degree, one could look at those things and say they are moving pieces or um, symptoms of symptoms, but not when it comes to, people with BP can't have BP without attachment and abandonment trauma. Um, and that creates a constant need for attention in a rather childlike way. Um, so I don't know that self harm and addictions are just side effects. I mean, the causative factor is what happened in childhood and what that really is, because it isn't, quote, a mental illness, because it isn't, quote, the way BPD, unquote, as American psychiatry describes it. Darius, thanks. I said it so many times. I try to be good for other people. I know I live in fairyland, fairyland. I'm not sure what you mean there. I know about my flaws. Generalizing is sad. Yes. Um, I've all your life, you've tried to figure out what is not okay with me. Well, and just know that, maybe working with someone will really help you, because, you deserve to feel better about yourself as well. Yes, Nancy, I hear you on that. Victor, she told our daughter she's getting bullied at work and is looking for a new job. She always has issues at every job. Well, yes, because they're largely her issues, right? It's sad to see her sabotage her life. I do care, but I'm doing okay. I've grown. Well, that's the important thing, is to have a boundary between that. But yes, to care from afar and sort of emotionally detached is understandable. And he said, I don't necessarily feel the pain so bad anymore. I'm healthy and happy with who I'm becoming, and it's kind of thanks to this experience. Well, and good. Just keep growing and just keep, learning the lessons from the experience. And humongous thanks, AJ. You're doing saint's work. Well, thank you for the kind words, but I'm just kind of doing the work that I think I was meant to do. So I don't think I'm a saint, but thank you. And yeah, with that, I better get going and watching the length of these now too, because this one's kind of longer and it matters, I think. Um, well, Victor, you're very welcome, and I'm glad that I've helped you. And For anybody that hasn't subscribed yet, please do subscribe and hit the notification bell. Support the channel. Memberships are available too if you're interested. 20 minutes of Zoom time with me on 2 levels, and it's half an hour of Zoom time on the gold level. But I may be readjusting something to do with that level. Anyways, so with that, yeah, people can check it out if they're interested. And I will continue to live stream, and there'll be videos. But like I said, the websites, lots of people are going to the websites that I have on the thumbnails, etc. And just know there's going to be a lot more there. ajmahar.ca has a lot of blog posts. ajmahar.co right now, not so much. Selfintegration.net, practically nothing. So I'm going to be getting a lot up there in blog posts, but also in other things to help people from a myriad of perspectives on a myriad of these moving pieces that each needs to be focused on to come together in the wholeness of what it means to recover from these relationships and from codependency. Yeah, well, you're very welcome, Cargo, and I hope you have a good night too. So, everybody, take care. Look forward to seeing you again. And in the meantime, yeah, just make sure you take care. Do the best you can. If you're no contact, stay no contact. If you're not no contact yet, try to get into the no contact space.